Hi everyone, this is NUSensei. I was fortunate enough to be contacted by Southwest Archery, a distributor in California, and they sent through a few items to have a look at, and one of them is the Southwest Archery Spyder. Now, the Spyder is what you might call the entry-level traditional bow. Now, according to Southwest Archery, the engineers who used to work for SAMIC moved on to Southwest, and they carry over quite a few similar design elements. So, apart from reviewing the Spyder, we'll also be making some comparisons to the venerable SAMIC Sage. The Spyder comes in two versions. This one is the 62-inch Spyder. There's also the Spyder XL, which is 64 inches long and more suitable for archers with a draw length of over 29 inches. This is again similar to the SAMIC Sage and the SAMIC Journey, so you have some options in terms of which bow size you'd like to use. The kit, as you see here, comes with the following items. You have the riser. You also have a set of limbs. These limbs are 45 pounds. And you get a Dacron string and a stick-on arrow rest. I should point out that all these things can be bought separately as replacement parts in case you need to replace the limbs or the riser or the string. So here we have a closer look at the riser. As you can see, the wood pattern is very similar to the Sage. The main addition is the red stripe over here. As you know, red makes everything go faster, so it does have a nice red accent going across the riser. I use a two-tone wood, which is a very nice, pleasing color to the eye. And overall, the finish is quite well polished and smooth. The cost of this riser is about $130 so it is your typical entry-level bow. And for what you get, this is a nice looking, nice feeling riser. The grip is, again, very smooth. I do like the contours around the palm. It fits around the hand nicely, and I do like how there's nothing really jutting out, which makes this awkward to hold. Some risers have bumpy parts or sharp edges or ridges, which can sometimes interfere with your grip, but this is actually a very smooth design. It's very well thought out, and it fits the pan nearly perfectly. The grip is a fairly small one. I imagine the XL might be a little different, but this one is a little small, so if you like smaller grips, this is perfect for you. I've got smaller hands, and this is the perfect size for me. I do like how everything just fits in nicely. Again, the front end, there's nothing too rigid that interferes with your grip, so if you like holding the whole way, there's nothing really here to stop from doing so. Or if you like the more open style grip, then that's also very comfortable to use. And again, I'll point out that the edges are more rounded and smoother. In the manufacturing process, I imagine they've done more to ensure that the riser has a rounder, smoother look. It does look a little smaller compared to the Sage, but it's actually a very nice looking bow. I find these smoother lines more pleasing to the eye. In contrast, here's the Sage. Again, very similar look, so no surprise there. The grip is similar, but I do find that the riser itself is a little fatter. It's a little chunky towards the middle, and the rather noticeable bumpier ridges on the front. It's very subtle. It's not going to affect like most of you, but in terms of aesthetics, the lines are definitely sharper. This doesn't affect the bow in any way, really, but it does show that the Spyder has a slightly different aesthetic, which you might find more appealing. So as far as the shape goes, I'd say the Spyder is visually similar to the Sage, and this is meant to be the next evolution of the Sage, so that makes sense. But in terms of its design and shape, I'd say that the Sage is blockier, while the Spyder has, again, that more rounded, smoother shape. In terms of the attachment points, you have a metal burger hole for a plunger button or a screw-in rest. You also have the standard bushings for a sight. There is, of course, no bushing for a clicker, although you can use a stick-on one. And you have one stabilizer mount here, which you can use for a stabilizer or a bow fishing reel. The Spyder comes with a stick-on rest. The rest is kind of rubbery plastic rather than the harder plastic you might find from a Hunter rest or Super rest. It works okay, but I do know some people dislike this kind of rest, so do keep that in mind. Next, we'll put the limbs on. Each limb has its direction labeled, so there's upper and lower. Now, the limbs are attached using a hex wrench. This is a little different compared to quite a few other bows at this level. Most bows have finger screws, whereas this one requires the hex wrench. So it's not a toolless takedown. And this is a bit different from the Sage. The Sage does have the finger screws. Now, this isn't an issue for most people. I think most people are going to leave the limbs attached to the riser anyway, rather than disassembling the whole thing. But if you are going to be taking the whole thing apart each time, it is a little tedious to have to go through this process all the time. Now, on the plus side, you can buy replacement finger screws for the Spyder, and these are the same ones as used on the Sage. So if you want the convenience, then that is an option, though you do have to pay a bit extra to get those screws. And here we have the bow fully assembled. As I said before, it's a fairly smooth bow to look at, very smooth on the hand. I do like how the riser is, it just looks cleaner, a little smaller, and it feels a little lighter. Might just be me, but the overall feeling of the bow when fully strung is it's light and compact, and I think this is something which many people will find quite desirable. That's a nice feeling bow. Like I said before, it's relatively lightweight in the hand, and that's quite a desirable thing for traditional bear bow, especially for beginners. It doesn't feel like it weighs you down. Feels just about right. That's actually really comfortable to use. The draw force curve isn't bizarre. It's a pretty soft draw. I've got a short draw length, so just keep that in mind. But the limbs feel quite smooth, which is really pleasant to draw and shoot. The feedback is quite nice. Nothing exceptionally heavy in vibration. Overall, actually, it's a very comfortable bow to shoot. I do like it. Considering this is like the lower end of the price spectrum, this feels quite comfortable. In a lot of ways, the smaller size of the rising grip reminds me more of some of the other beginner level bows, like the Samick Polaris or the PEC Razorback. It's that kind of feeling, but it's got that darker look and with the heavier draw weight of the Sage. So it's a combination of a lot of things I like about the entry level bows. Nice. I just want to quickly compare the Spyder to the Sage, since I've got it here. I said earlier that one of the distinguishing feelings is that the Sage looks a little blockier, which isn't a bad thing, by the way. It doesn't affect the shooting. But it does feel different. It looks similar, but it feels different. But because this Spyder is meant to be the next step from the Sage, I expect a few differences. I'm using a different string, a different brace height on the Sage, so it'll sound a little different. It'll sound a little louder, I think, but that's to be expected. I haven't really played around the Sage yet. Still feels nice, by the way. The Sage is still a good bow. Nothing wrong with it. Yeah, I mean, look, the Sage is a Sage. It's, like I said, I think my overall thoughts of comparing the Spyder and the Sage, the Spyder is a little lighter, thinner, and a bit more delicate. The Sage is a little chunky and blockier. Apart from that, though, in terms of handling, they're very similar. Overall thoughts on the Southwest Spyder. I like it for a lot of reasons, and very similar reasons to the Samick Sage back when it was really popular and even today. Big pluses. Very affordable price point, about 130, 140 US dollars. It does come with a very wide range of draw weights, so you can start low as a beginner bow, or you can go high and use it as a hunting bow if you really want to. It does have that Samick Sage color scheme, which is very popular, the dark and light contrast. I do like the racing stripe. You know, it's a thing with bows, but the red does stand out with wood bows. But what I really like about the bow is the aesthetics. I do feel like the riser is more streamlined than the Sage. It looks nicer to the eye, it feels nicer in the hand, and overall, it just looks like a sleeker version of the Sage. And I think that's a really good thing. Now, if you have bigger hands, I think you might find that the smaller grip might be a little small for you. I don't think it's a huge issue. I think most people find it's just fine. If you're average size, then this is perfect, I reckon. The feedback of the bow is quite nice. I really enjoyed shooting it. It didn't feel like you were stacking heavily. The bow felt pretty smooth to draw. The vibration wasn't that bad, and I think this is a pretty nice entry-level bow. You know, I keep on looking back on the grip, and I keep on seeing the reflection of the light off the roundness of the wood, and again, there's something really aesthetically pleasing about seeing this. But yeah, it's not a luxury bow by any regard, but I think this is actually a very good value entry-level bow. So if you're looking at an affordable entry point into owning your own bow, I think the Spyder is something which I think many people will enjoy using. Anyway, this is NUSensei. Hope you found this helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.